that following Monday, I realized, look, if I'm going to tout to be this leader or quote unquote manager or director or whatever it is, where I'm working with other people on a mission, it all starts with me. I was a mess. You know what I mean? I'd realize if I'm going to go lead a team and manage folks and people and keep this marriage, I need to work on myself. They're just really shed a light. All the problems we were going through in the business really shed a light on all the personal issues that I needed to work through.
Leo here, your host of the Building Bellingham podcast, and thanks for stopping by the studio. Pour a glass of whiskey or local beer, take a sip, kick those feet up. We're going to dive into what it means to be a business owner, what it means to be a member of this Bellingham and Whatcom County community, and what it means to find peace and balance while running a badass, high-octane, local, iconic business. Let's jump in. We are here, season 5, episode 3, I believe 33 episodes, 34 episodes, and I'm just excited to finally have you here in the studio because you and I have known each other for a long time. And we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been on Pivot together.
Yep.
We've collaborated a bunch together. So I'm just really excited to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm super grateful.
And you and Kristina, your wife, own a company called IAJ Media. And there's a lot to this. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to you both. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm just really excited to unpack all of these elements of your business. And it's being an entrepreneur is not built for everybody. Everybody has a little entrepreneurial spirit in them, but also not everyone harnesses it. And it's scary. It makes you sad. It makes you happy. It makes you all of the emotions. Yeah. Probably a lot like parenting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Managing the chaos that ensues for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about where the chaos started. Yeah. You from day one, were you interested in being a director, being an owner of a company? What were you like as a kid?
So that's so funny. When before we got on here, I was reading a book called The Alchemist. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a great book.
I have.
And they talk about their personal legend. I've this is like the third time I've read it. Sometimes I'll need to reread it just to kind of get some inspiration. But to answer your question, the personal legend, which they talk about in the book, which is your purpose, right? Your true purpose. It's something that, and they say in the book that you kind of discover as a child.
Right.
And you always hear that. I mean, you hear tons of professional development podcasts, personal development stuff where they say, your life, your upbringing is all just in preparation to, or is all just preparing you for, your purpose, your true calling. Right. Mm-hmm. And I never quite understood that because I was looking at a lot of the superficial things that happened to me as a child. Right. How did this happen? How did, for example, I had an abusive stepfather, we don't have to get into that too much, but I would look at things like that and go, how would those situations prepare me for where I am today? Mm-hmm. Right. And reading this quote in this book about how personal legends are usually discovered as a child, I thought back early to when I was maybe 9 or 10, and I would be watching the X-Men animated. I don't know if you guys ever watched the X-Men cartoons back in the day on Q13 Fox.
That's all I had.
Sunday morning, baby, 10 a.m. Pop that Wolverine
yeah.
costume on and watch some X-Men. You know, it was just so fascinating to me, the whole story of it. And I started getting just really obsessed, and I was tuning in every Sunday, and throughout the week, I would just imagine these fantastical stories, you know, like, what if X-Men was a movie? Little did I know they had already done like an 80s rendition of that.
Yeah.
But,
and it got out of hand like the last 10 years, 15 years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
the whole Marvel thing,
but they should be paying you a royalty on that because you thought, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, Marvel, when you're listening to this, you know.
That is kind of what I was like as a child, right? Mm-hmm. Like always thinking, you know, what if this was a movie, or what if these characters interacted in a certain way? What if they went against this kind of a challenge instead of that? We'd be cruising down on Highway 20 here in the or around Skagit Valley, beautiful area, right? Mm-hmm. And would just imagine shots in my head, right? Like, and I didn't really know what any of that meant at the time as a child. It was just kind of my mind freely exploring itself. So that was the calling, and that was what I was like as a child. My mom would say other things too. and everyone so would everyone else in my family.
Yeah.
But as a child, I was always very, I was pretty much misunderstood. I was always very hyperactive when it came to being ADHD about things, and just like take on one task, move on to another without finishing that.
Yeah.
Or just spoke my mind instantly without any kind of filter.
Yep.
If I thought someone was being an idiot, I'd tell them they were being an idiot, you know. And I'm starting to see this kind of behavior in my own kid naturally, not from anything she's seen from me.
Yeah. They're not a mirror of us.
No. Yeah. Seriously though, I always try to keep as much of a level head as possible and calmness. But deep down, there's a ferocity, right? And I'm seeing that in my children as well. And I had a lot of that when I was growing up as a kid, and I didn't really know how to filter that. I love my mother to death. She's raised me, you know, only mom or only parent in the home, really. You know, so she was working all the time. So there wasn't a lot of guidance, you know, through no fault of her own. Right. You know,
she was trying to make it work.
She was trying to make it work. She was a realtor.
Yeah.
She still is a realtor.
Good for her.
But yeah, she was, you know, that's where I learned a little bit of the entrepreneurialism of greeting your neighbor, talk and just networking and
connecting with people,
community building. Exactly. You know, I watched her from afar and really I picked up a lot of that from her growing up. But anyways, circle back to the question. Yeah, I was pretty hyperactive, super creative from the get. Yeah. And I always thought I'd be a rapper.
You still can be.
I still can be.
What would your name be?
C Town.
C, beautiful.
C Unit. Kind of, I don't know.
C Unit.
C Money.
Yeah, C Money. Those are all options. Yeah. You might be getting some bling in the mail from us.
I know.
For that.
I hope so, with a big chain.
Yeah. There's kind of more of a meta topic. We don't need to go super far into this, but you talked about this legend being developed when you're a young kid, and I remember having the same experiences as a kid. Then there was a certain point in my life where I started to feel the weight of society and the world saying, well, this is how things should be. This is how what most people do. Did you ever feel that, or did you just were you still, like you said, ferocity? Did you have that ferocity to go, I don't really care that this is the way that things should be done. I think this is like, there are some things that are good to adapt to because it's like just more efficient. But then there's the other part that, like, did you hold on to who you were, or did you feel that weight? You know, they say it's like 7 or 8 years old when you start to feel this weight of like expectations or groupthink or fill in the blank, right?
Yeah. You know, yes, around the time I was like 14 or 15, man, I started hearing a lot from my family as far as like, you know, thinking about the future, thinking about, you know, what kind of extracurricular things I want to get into. And they all had a common theme. All the advice had a common theme.
What was that?
And it was that there's nothing wrong with this, right? Like, you go to college, get your 4-year, you know, your cousins are attorneys. Yeah. They make a lot of money. Yeah. Either a medical doctor or a lawyer. Yeah. It is essentially, or a priest, one of the three. If I wasn't a priest, I'd sure as all better be, you know, serving up medicine or, you know, taking it to
3
court.
Options.
One of the
it's
three.
It's like my grandfather who said, hey, if you can't get into Harvard, let's go check out Stanford. And I said, I love you.
Great.
Oh, great. I'm going to go to Western, and it's still a good school. Yeah. So
right.
Exactly.
And
so maybe a generational.
It totally was generational knowledge, generational kind of advice being passed down, which is normal, right?
Pretty normal.
I heard the rumblings, I heard the advice. Maybe this is just who I am, and I'm starting to see this reflection in my kids, but went in one ear and out the other, and was like, I'm just gonna go experience that for myself. I didn't really start to feel the weight of that until I actually started the journey. When we started our business, then I really started to feel the weight, because all the opinions of those that would make their opinions really started to reveal themselves.
What were some of those opinions? So just kind of pivoting to being an entrepreneur, and, you know, we'll dive back into some other stuff, but I think starting your business, who were you listening to, and what type of opinions, good and bad, were you getting about being a business owner and then creating a creative media company, right? What were some of those? At
the time, I thought it was bad. And I felt maybe it's perspective. Maybe I've shifted my perspective, right? In thinking that criticism from family and friends it was criticism at the time, right? To me. But over time, I had realized that, oh, well, you know, they were just looking out for me. They were looking out for me because I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing, right? Went into this thing, just kind of leapt forward, I was talking to Kristina a few months ago about this, and that if I had to go back 9 years and go and see myself, I probably said the same thing. Clarito, you idiot. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're not ready for this.
Yeah.
You got to look at these calculations first, or look at this aspect of it at the very least before you move forward. But you know what? At the same time, everything happens
Ignorance
for a
is
reason.
bliss, kind of.
It is, because I learned through that ignorance.
Yes.
Eventually, had I delayed myself, or had I reached for that perfection before making the leap, who knows? I would probably never have done it.
Yeah.
Or the timing just would have been different, and I would not have connected with the individuals that have brought me so much value and education and knowledge over the last few years, so
It's kind of a weird,
it all happens for a reason.
It's kind of a weird dilemma as an entrepreneur, because early on, when you don't know same thing for me. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was unafraid of what I didn't know.
Yeah, right.
And so someone asked me recently, like, hey, would you start over a real estate company in today's world? And I'm like, well, now knowing the pain of, there's lots of good stuff that comes along with it, but now knowing this, I feel like I know too much to, you know what I mean? It's almost this like balance of knowing and having a business plan, and also, and not just waiting to do it. And then also the flip side of that. Right. And so you've almost been doing this for a decade.
Yeah.
What are your parents and the people that gave you opinions early on about, I can't believe you're doing this? What do they say now?
They're pretty stoked for me. They're super, they're pretty proud, and they're super supportive. Everyone has been incredibly supportive in my family, which is awesome. Whereas, my perspective on it was, like I said earlier, it wasn't support. It was criticism, or quote unquote haters.
Yeah.
Really, there aren't that many haters when it boils down.
They all love you, and that's
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
it's exactly it. So they're super supportive, man. And I'm super blessed to have the family that I do. They've even gone so far as to reach out and provide support, whether that's even just as little as childcare. Or that's not little, that's a huge thing for us.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Things like that. As they've seen results, as they've seen us go through the pain and all the trials of, as we all know, what entrepreneurism can really be.
Smooth sailing.
Smooth sailing. Yeah, absolutely. Smooth sailing. It's pretty darn smooth sailing. No, but they've been pretty supportive, especially since they've seen.
Just takes time sometimes. Yeah. I know what you do, but I'd love to dive in more. Like, because there's multiple components.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably components of your business that are bigger money makers, and other components that are at this point. I was trying to think about this, and I almost feel like as you're developing a new script, or you're developing a new show or a movie, or a plan for a new business, from a marketing perspective, it probably all starts as passion projects, but some are more proven than others, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just start running through some definitions. So when you're creating a show, and we'll talk about what's happening, because there's some really cool stuff happening. Yeah. What are some of the roles? Like, there's producer, director, cinematographer. Who are these people, and how do you delegate? How do you find the correct people for the job? Are they contractors? Are they employees? What does that look like?
Of course, it all varies, and this can really split off into so many different subjects, right? Especially with how certain states handle film production.
Yeah.
Right. There's your writer and director.
Mm-hmm.
Your writer is where it starts, right? The words on words on that page.
And that's predominantly what you're doing. That's writer and director.
I'm a writer, director, producer. So I'm wearing all three hats, sometimes four.
Damn.
Yeah. And I can, more recently 6.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But, you have your writer who puts the words on the page, creates the whole story, the structure, the beat sheet and outline, which basically goes through each act of whatever project that you're putting together. And they'll usually work with an executive producer or a producer, because the producer and the executive producers are usually the ones who can put it into play, put it into motion. Executive producers are usually the ones who go out and seek out funding or financing, usually through private equity or their own relationships, or through institutions that lend in entertainment. So executive producers also facilitate bringing on casting agents and that sort of thing. Producers, same thing. They don't really handle much of the finances, but they're in charge of operations,
like day to day,
right? Like, who's going to be, or I got to find me a cinematographer. The director really likes this person. I got to go do the negotiation with their agent or whomever, right?
Yep.
You know, they do anything from that to daily finances, like daily, like spending, right? Reporting daily finances to the UPM if needed, or vice versa. Sometimes the roles can blend. And then your cinematographer, you know, they're the ones who translate the vision of the director to what you see on screen. You know, what's the picture going to look, the artistry behind it, right? Like, what's the mood going to convey, right?
And I saw recently you worked with Dakota.
I love Dakota. We work all the time together.
Huntley Motion, man. Yeah. He's a good friend of mine. And I saw that on the site. I was like, I know that guy.
Anything that we ever shoot is usually him, aside from anything. Well, anything we shoot for Egress has been him. He is an amazing cinematographer. We both have the same movie language.
Yep.
You know, we love the same style of movies, kind of movies. And that really helps because, you know, we want to tell the story that we actually are fond of watching ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
That probably makes it more fun.
Oh yeah. And it just, that's the purpose,
right?
That's where we find purpose in the art is, you know, telling a story that you yourself want to tell. That's why I do it. You know, there's so many different roles, you know, and lately I've been having to wear the role of usually I'm an on-set director, producer and writer. But lately I've been taking on some visual effects elements. We've had some VFX people drop out and having to take on some of that. But eventually the goal with all of this is, of course, to have a much bigger team, help you execute that vision, right? Because you can only be so good at so many things. Right?
Does it help you find the right person too, when you have to, like in these moments where maybe it's not your number one skill set, maybe your focus is being the director or producer, but you've had to, like, because of the size of the company, you're not like, you know, MGM or something, you know, like, so for that reason, those are like the biggest companies in Hollywood, but you're a big enough company where you're doing, you know, big stuff, but you're still having to wear some of the other hats. Does that help you, like, as you grow, do you think, to be able to find the right people?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
and
I know what this position needs.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Because then at that point, you know, you're a creative director, you understand how to speak the language, you understand the problems that these type of artists face on a day-to-day basis, whether it's with their tools or just creative ideation. You understand the language, you understand the pain points. So if you can understand those things, just like any good manager or leader, you can be the best support system for that individual. I love that. That's usually where I thrive the most, is speaking a creative language with the individual and then just seeing them like turn whatever idea that was brought to the table and just run with it and turn it into something completely different or much better than I had originally envisioned it. So that's, you know, shout out to Dakota there.
Yeah.
Like, he's been able to do that 100% of the time.
He's pretty amazing. Yeah. Big fan. Also, for me and for people that are listening, let's do a quick timeline of, like, idea, script. How do you get funding? How do you find people? Like, I know that's a loaded question. But, like, what is the process like? What are the steps?
Yeah. And it's just like anything, whether you're developing an app, whether you're developing a subdivision, you know, they have some similarities to the process, right? Each step has its own set of chaos happening within those stages, right? It really depends, man, because every concept is different. Every film or show, and this is one of the things that I've learned over the last few years, is that every film or show is made differently, and no one show is made the same unless you have just a system nailed in with tons of resources. Disney,
like a specific type.
Disney,
yeah,
right?
Disney,
yeah. Disney has their processes and they're dialed into a T. They even have proprietary software that they use that is not even available to the public.
Yep.
You know, things like that. So with them, obviously, there's like this template, strict process. But you know, when you're in the independent market, where I'm thriving in right now, everything is different. You know, no 1-2 projects are the same. Financing could come from so many different sources. Usually though, writing is where the first step is, the ideation. And typically, you know, you want to ask yourself, why am I writing this? What's the purpose of the story? What am I trying to say? And sometimes you're just trying to entertain people. And that's cool too. Right. Then how are you going to entertain them? And then you got to really like answer some questions. You don't want to ever get too far ahead of yourself, but you do want to think ahead.
Like, who's my demographic? Who's the audience? Yeah.
Who's the audience? Where is this going to live? What streamer do I feel like this is going to be a right fit for? Because, you know, Hulu looks for different things than Netflix does. Same with Disney. Disney's actually going into the more adult type of content more recently, from what I've been hearing.
Star Wars specifically.
I think Marvel.
Yeah. I've just.
I don't know. I guess Marvel's being more
It's
adult
fresh in my brain because I
now.
went down a Mando rabbit
Yeah.
hole. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Good.
If you like Mando, you'll like Andor.
I just started it.
Yeah,
It's going.
and it's a little darker.
Full force. Yeah. We yin and yang, man. We have the dark and the light.
You cannot have light without dark.
I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question again, like, yeah, it's just a matter of finding what works for you. Usually writing goes first, finding yourself a producer hand in hand with a director.
And these are contractors.
Typically they are contractors in most cases. In the state of Washington, it really depends, right? The state of Washington, they're required to be employees.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
But now you do.
But now I do, right? They're typically required to be employees if they are to go on set during a certain time. It's just this weird gray area. And this is where I challenge Washington even to look at some of this and go, okay, in my opinion, sometimes it just makes it harder for us, independent folks, to get something kickstarted with so much of that red tape in play, right? So
versus like Vancouver, I notice a lot of like filming in Vancouver, and then LA, obviously.
Even other cities. LA is actually a shit show
on the decline.
Yeah.
See, we're officially explicit now. Let's go. Beep, beep.
Yeah. LA is on fire, but there are a lot of states that do it really well, and the reason they do it well is because they're flexible. They understand, that there may need to be some concession made. To answer your question, yeah, most of the time in Washington State, they are required to be employees, but there are instances where you can contract out a job. You can even run loose call times. You can do things to have your subcontractors on a set that allow you to have subcontractors. But in a lot of cases, though, they require employee status. But unfortunately, there aren't enough productions with high enough value to be able to support that in Washington. That's why that's kind of been the headache we've been dealing with. And the reason I've come into a lot of this education and knowledge is Washington State FilmWorks has a film incentive program where you can receive tax incentives, you can get rebates back for your project, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Like they're trying, right? And I applaud them for that. They've been doing it for, I think, 15 years now, I believe. I've compared their process with other states, and let me tell you, a 20-page application form with Washington, or there's a 8 to 10 page in other states.
Yeah.
And then there's certain requirements that Washington really pulls for that I feel like isn't just realistic for the nature of the film industry here. I don't see it taking off unless there's some real changes made there.
Yeah.
So
a lot of this has to do with people too. It's really interesting because you clearly probably had relationships when you started, but the relationships you have now and track record and experience delivering on these things that you say you're going to do, that creates better relationships. So, and things get easier. So look, maybe talk about day one, you're trying to create this, a show versus today. And like, how important are those relationships in pulling together a cohesive show or movie or whatever you're working on?
Oh man, they're super important. I think those relationships are the only way that these things can get made.
Because maybe at the start, they won't pick up the phone versus now they have a track record with you. And they see your name pop up on their phone and they go, let's go do something fun.
Yeah.
Let's go do a good project.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, has helped elevate us is to keep learning, keep pursuing, keep, developing the portfolio, keep perfecting the craft, regardless of all the outside stuff that's happening. Right. That's been very important. Those relationships are the only reason these things get made. Our actor, Justin Slaughter, for example, he plays Huxley. He's taken on the role as an executive producer now.
That's cool.
He's taken on the role of that because he just loves he's a go-getter. He's got an entrepreneurial spirit himself. One of the major reasons I had reached out to him to play Adam Huxley in Egress is because I didn't even look at his acting reel.
Yeah.
I just looked at what he was posting, and it was, some of it was like motivational, some of it was spiritual, some of it was work ethic. Like, wow, this guy's got a great work ethic, seems to be squared away. Yeah. Core values. We shared the same values.
Yeah.
Before I even looked at his reel.
Yeah.
Thank God he knew how to act.
Yeah. That helps. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super. But like, that relationship is one of the major reasons we're having a premiere in Texas on November 18th.
That's awesome.
So that's really cool for him, his community. He's bringing a lot of the school systems out to go watch the movie. because Beaumont's, I guess, a fairly small area in Texas, Southeast Texas. I mean, those relationships are massive and they're important. It's also what you say no to. Certain relationships you should say no to. That's something I've come across as well.
You feel like your gut chimes in.
Oh yeah.
And then you go, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna just give this a shot. And then, I mean, you have to give opportunities to things that aren't perfect.
Yeah.
But then
I have. Yeah. And you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and I both. But yeah, just have you started listening to your gut more?
Absolutely.
When it speaks up?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Over this last year, I've been definitely more honest with myself and others around me, and I've definitely owned my voice a little more, and I'm not as ashamed of it. Right.
That's part of your legend. That's what you're talking about, like your voice early on as a kid.
Exactly. That's your voice, and there are so many times in life where you're told to tone down that voice or not speak up against something that you truly, or not speak up about something you believe in, right? Stuff like that. So yeah, over time, as we develop these relationships, they get really, we get more honest with ourselves. We get more honest with, if we're more honest with ourselves, we can be more straightforward in our business dealings. I had a contract come out, or I should say like a lawyer came back with all these things, right? And I told, let me just give you the story, right? I'm producing a pilot right now, a different pilot.
What's it called?
A Lion Amongst Mules.
Ooh.
A Lion Amongst Mules.
I like the title.
Thanks, man. It's about a born into violence drug runner turned into a beacon of courage, or turned into a beacon of courage and light and hope. Anyway, so
I love it.
He's, it's a great story. It's a crime drama. It's a biographical crime drama. We were putting together a licensing agreement. An attorney came back with some items that they needed addressed. And the tone of the email was just very like, well, you know what? I was not trying to contest anything anyway. I just put together a template just to get us started.
Yep.
But I'm very transparent. You tell me what you need. I'll tell you what I need. Cut to the chase, right? Let's just get after it and be transparent with each other. So I've learned that, over the last couple of years as well, just more open honesty and transparency will just get so much more done.
Helps us
saves
with
a lot of time.
Right?
Yeah. You feel way better.
Yeah.
Because all that pent up stress and energy from not being completely candid and honest, it resides in here.
Yeah.
And it manifests itself into
and it eats away at you.
Yeah. It literally manifests into like a physical, into your physiology.
Yeah.
So the more you can do away and expel that energy with truth and honesty, things are just way better off.
Snip it in the butt.
Yeah.
Nip
it in the butt.
One thing I want to pivot to, because people that are listening, you're doing all these things on a big scale that are locally, but also, outside of Bellingham as well, on a big, big scale. And we'll get to that at the end.
Of course.
I'm excited for that part. You run a business in Bellingham.
I do.
And this is just my assumption. So correct me if I'm wrong, but there's different elements to your business. There's things that are really proven, and now things that are becoming more proven with the business, like the bigger scale stuff, which takes so much time and effort and money and all the things, bandwidth. You do marketing for small businesses too. But are you shifting away from that? Do you still have your core clients? Tell me a little bit more about the components of your business and what makes up your business. How do you bring income in?
Yeah, of course. So that's a great question, because and it's a perfectly timed question. And the reason I say it's a perfectly timed question is because we are in the midst of rebuilding our business here in Bellingham. So, I was driving here. I was like, wait a minute, I'm rebuilding my business. I guess I'm building Bellingham. And
rebuilding Bellingham.
Rebuilding Bellingham somewhat.
Building Bellingham.
Yeah. But so we're rebuilding our business. So to answer your question, we were generating revenue we were a service-based agency. We followed the traditional model of.
What is the traditional model?
The traditional model is you are essentially what's called an agency of record. You represent anything and everything that positions that brand in the marketplace, whether that's PR, marketing strategy, channel management, programmatic advertising, web design, anything that's like the public facing or positioning of that brand. We did it. Now, this is where a lot of hard lessons were learned. Were we great at some of those things? We were fucking awesome at some of those things. Were we bad at some of those things? We were fucking terrible at some of those things. So there were some lessons learned there. And that is where, we had to eat some humble pie and really go, okay, these parts of our business aren't working. And why is that? Well, there isn't enough energy to put it into that because we had grown too fast. We had taken on too much, and there was very little in terms of skill set on how to manage certain elements of our business that I was not producing well. Right. Like, so a good example of that is I was in the midst of trying to get Egress off the ground, but I was also trying to pay attention to a metric for our chocolate ad sales. We were running ads for these chocolate bars, this national brand. And, you know, I was paying attention to that metrics and doing repeated meetings as to why, you know, certain numbers weren't being hit, or to what we need to change the creative chocolate bar asset to, or whatever. Right. And I just felt like, you know, we were not doing those clients the best. We were not giving them the best service.
Because part of your brain was focused on what was at that time a passion project.
Yes, at the time was a passion project, and it's wrong to the client.
Yeah,
you know, to do that. You know, if I'm going to be there and do this kind of work, I'm going to be there 1000% all the way with them, do or die. Right. I'm a ride or die kind of dude. When I'm on your team, I'll ride or die with you. And I was not riding or dying. Yeah. I was barely riding, you know? So, you know, we made the hard choice to transition out of that. As of actually a few months ago, we stopped really taking on a lot of our commercial clients. I mean, we'll take on freelance projects from time to time.
But it's been in your brain for a long time. I feel like the conversation has been brewing.
This has been going on since 2019.
Yeah.
Really. And we took the full steps into going all in last year, or about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
People think that when you start a business, they're like, this is the thing it's going to be this way forever. And we talk about adaptability.
Yeah.
Right. The whole concept of adaptability. And you've been doing this for almost a decade. And you thought, well, my heart's in this, my heart's in production, my heart's in, like, you know, TV and video and big time, you know, movie production. But you're basically, it's not like you're restarting because you still have all the connections that you had.
Right.
Okay. But you're still, and it's not like you don't know what you're doing, because you very much know what you're doing. You're an absolute expert master of what you do, but you're also changing the form of how you make revenue. What's that like?
That's a great question too, man. Cause let me peel it back from when we started scaling out of that type of, or started transitioning out of that business. Along with those mistakes that I've learned, I wanted to make sure that I was not running a team through false missions. I mean, false missions as in, oh, we're going to be out of here anyway. You know, we're going to transition at some point. I wanted to be very clear and very honest with them. And so we had to just really transition out of it. And we went from being a 9-person team. Well, actually, it depended, you know, depending on the project scope and size, it was anywhere from 9 to 12 people.
Just with some contractors too.
Yeah, exactly. And we would have like annual clients that would rely on us for everything that they did, you know, public facing wise, marketing wise. So we would need some extra folks. But when those clients, you know, we started phasing out of that, we really just didn't have any more work for folks. Right. So we transitioned out of that. So we went from a 9 to 10-person team to just myself and Kristina, and then 2 others in Texas. So there's 4 of us now. However, with doing that, we've had to shift how we obtain revenue, and how we obtain revenue now is in the business of making and producing intellectual property in the form of original content for film and television. I know that's a long-winded way of saying that, but we make film and TV shows.
I'm thinking of what you're putting down.
So we make revenue that way. And typically how that's done is, think of it as a producer, you're creating these little startups, and you're collecting investments. And from those investments, you are able to pay yourself based off of whatever you're doing in that project. In some cases, you're not. And if you're not, then that goes off to escrow somewhere else, and someone else, another payroll company manages that. However, if I am actually producing and directing, that is how we'll get the revenue. We just made the shift, man. Really is just jumped. We just jumped, and making revenue for our business in the movie business is you make money through your work, and that's your job, right? You collect the investments just to do your job, right? But if you want to see any real sustained wealth building it's in the selling of that property. So you can work. So this is the crazy thing. And I have a habit of doing this is I always end up taking the hard route, the most convoluted and screwed up route, which is creating the property myself, finding financing for it, getting people to believe in it, produce it with others, and then selling it. That is what I'm doing now. Whereas, your average filmmaker will work within the system.
Pick parts of it.
Yeah, pick parts of
and
it.
Just stay in a lane.
Exactly. Yeah. Stay in that lane. I'm going to be a director, so I'm going to create a reel and just submit to all these production companies and boom, get a job.
Yeah.
Right.
You're in 4 lanes.
I'm in
yes. You're like on I-5.
I'm on I-5. Clarito's that's been decimated.
Clarito and Kristina's business is I-5.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But really, I think that, you can do one of two ways in the movie industry. You can work within the system, which is cool too. Mm-hmm. You can build a lot of networks that way, or you can go outside of the system, which we're doing is we're creating this content. We're not working on other people's content, if that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah.
So I've taken the non-traditional route again.
This is a theme with you. Yeah. And me too.
Yeah. All of us, right?
Very good company here.
Yeah. Thanks, brother. Kristina's so patient. Gosh, she's such a saint because she helps run. She's a producer as well.
Let's talk about that dynamic, because you run your company, or probably she runs your company with you. Yeah. But
she makes sure she does a lot.
What's it like working with your spouse? I mean, you have your personal life and you have your home life, you have your kids, you have the things that when you have a spinch of time, the things you like to do for yourself or together, date nights, perhaps every once in a while. Course, yeah. How do you find balance? Do you find balance and imbalance? Because you have a lot going on. You're in 4 lanes, let's call it 4 lanes, or an I-5 in the film industry. Right. You're doing this with your wife, and you have kids, and you're doing big things. Yeah. Do you have more bandwidth than the average person, or what? How do you find time for all these things?
And that's something that I think I'm still struggling through that at the moment. And so if you're doing everything, you're not doing anything. Yeah. So okay. I try to. I'm working on that right now. But I don't have any more bandwidth, to be personal, just straight up, everything is dialed in on those core elements that you mentioned. My relationship with my kids, which is probably one of the things that I cherish the most. And I'm super proud of the most, right? Is that I've built a really awesome connection with my older kids and my younger kids. I want to be a loving, devoted, and supportive husband as much as possible. I want to tell stories that inspire the world and give people a bit of escapism for a couple hours. That's number 3. Yeah. So I guess those are the 3 components, right? Family man, and my family's my life, my marriage, and the business. And to really, at first I was deathly afraid of starting a business with Kristina.
What were you afraid of?
I was afraid of a lot of the common stereotypes that were put out there. I have a good buddy what did he say? He's like, bro, I would never, family and business, they don't mix, this and that. Just your really knowledge from folks who've never really experienced it, just, reciting just what they've
perception
heard
of what could be. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Perception and just reciting your old stereotypes, right? That really don't make any sense. But yeah, so that's where that fear came from. But over time, I've said this before, is starting the business saved my life. It really did. It saved a lot. It put me on a whole different path. When we were first struggling, there's always struggles, right? They're just different levels of it. Yeah. But
better problems.
Hopefully. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what you hope for. Definitely. Not no problems.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of just debates and arguments about who's going to do what. Well, I'm doing this. Can you run the kids here? Or this and that or the other, right? Well, I got to take this meeting, Clarito. Why don't there's a lot of finding our footing. I remember I think it was 2 to 3 years into our business, I honestly thought 2 things. I was going to lose my marriage and I was going to lose the business. There was just all sorts of personal issues that were coming to the surface, because they come in full force when you are going through those set of challenges of building a business. They do. They just, everything, problems, all of the little problems, all of a sudden there's just this flashlight being shined on it, right? So those started surfacing. So I met with a good friend, Chris Urban, actually.
Yeah, Chris, yeah.
He was such he still is a great mentor and friend. And I called him one day and we just had this great heart to heart. And he set me on the path for personal development, told me to go read this book. If I don't make it through, he said, he's like, you're full of shit. If you can't get through this, if you really want what you want, you will take the effort to do this.
Hey everyone, it's Leo. The Building Bellingham podcast is an arm of the Cohen Group Northwest, my real estate team at the Moliat Group Realtors. We're a high-energy, 5-star group of agents and admins that specialize in home sales right here in Bellingham. Whenever you have questions about the local real estate market or your home's value, don't hesitate to reach out. All right, back to the show.
And he challenged me. And that challenge almost, more than anything, pissed me off. I was like, oh, okay, you're going to challenge me? Fine, let's, I went through it. I went through this Audible, and it just changed things. It changes perspective, because that following Monday, I realized, look, if I'm going to tout to be this leader or quote unquote manager or director or whatever it is, where I'm working with other people on a mission, it all starts with me. I was a mess. You know what I mean? I'd realize if I'm going to go lead a team and manage folks and people and keep this marriage, I need to work on myself. They're just really shed a light. All the problems we were going through in the business really shed a light on all the personal issues that I needed to work through. And sure enough, we started dialing in coaching more. Me and her started taking some coaching classes together, marriage coaching classes.
It's like you have to work on it.
I know.
I thought you just get married and things just
it's like
work.
La La Land,
Kids, business,
happily ever after.
And we don't change at all. We don't evolve. So
we
just stay the same. It's a flat
We're
line.
gonna stay the same. We're just gonna have drinks every day and weekend, and not.
What a load of shit, right? You have to keep working on it, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Happily ever after is a load of shit. It's it can be. It takes work. I found love in the work. That is what I think saved everything. I found love in the work because it made it worth it,
The commitment, right? I feel like a lot of people have a hard time committing to, or even in staying consistent to things.
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything. In fact, saying no to most things, but when you say yes to something, committing to it.
All in.
Just get after it. Yeah. People that say yes to a lot of things, like you said, they don't get anything done.
Yeah. I mean, I've been guilty of that.
Me too.
It's not, and it's something that I'm still trying to work on.
We're both guilty as charged. We're right here. We're in the hot seats too.
I'm not getting straight A's, man.
Yeah. So let's thank you for sharing that, by the way. Appreciate that.
Of course.
Because it's important to kind of use this platform as an opportunity to reflect back on how this happened.
Yeah.
Right. And it's still happening. So let's talk about your brand. You're on brand 100% with what you're wearing today. You've got the J1s, you've got the red and black, you've got the red. I love your brand, and your brand sticks out. It's so clear. How did you brand yourself? How did you land on black and red? I know you're probably a Jordan fan.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Or
a Bulls fan. But how did you create the style? Because there's a certain style to it that's not like anything else that I see out there. I know you have a history in branding.
Yeah.
But how did you come up with your own brand? Because it's easy to do it for other people, maybe.
Yeah.
But how do you do it for yourself?
Well, first of all, I want to credit a lot of the artists and creative people that have helped work on the brand. So that is, it is because of them that it stands out the way it does. My old CD, Dylan Green, he helped come up with the iteration that you see now, and visually anyway. But a brand is more than that, obviously. So as far as brand goes, really that it just took time. You don't really assign any meaning to any brand or anything until you've gone through the war, the battles, the victories, the learning moments, or even have built communities around that brand, right? Then it really starts to take shape and meaning. But really, from the get-go, I've always wanted to have something that stood out. I've always been partial to the folks that are on the outskirts, the renegades, the troublemakers, right? I grew up in bands, right? Yeah. I grew up as a musician. I wore a chain, studded belt. I was kind of but even then I was an outcast among outcasts because I never really felt like I fit in anywhere or belonged. I always stood out. Maybe that's why I've always rooted for the underdog. I've always rooted for the guy who was down and out and who was regarded as an outcast. But anyway, so really I was, whether that's the Nike swoosh or the H&M logo. I really wanted something just that at first didn't exude like, oh, this cookie cutter, clean kind of image. I wanted the image to convey that we were not afraid to step outside of ourselves even, and out of our own comfort zone, right? And just be bold with it. Wanted something intentionally bold and out there. So our old logo, which was IAJ Multimedia, was just this splattered paintbrush kind of like logo font type. But eventually, we dial it in, shorten the name and put meaning behind our lockup. Red was just always like it runs through our veins.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure,
so that was my kind of train of thought. That my wife and I love the color red and black. So that was a theme at our wedding.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Red and black. So
right
we just kind of carried that through, but yeah.
Right on. Bellingham is a middle-sized community. It's not a big city.
Right.
And you said LA is on fire physically and metaphorically in the film industry.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got Vancouver, you've got all these big hubs, right? And you've got all these other film hubs around the country. Does it matter where you physically are when it comes to working in this industry? Does Bellingham have the work? Does it have the connections? Does it have the potential? Or do you go, okay, we're going to be here because this is where we love to be, but these are the places that we need to be going to present our proprietary product?
It does very much matter.
Yeah.
Especially on the scale of what we're trying to do. Our goal is to bring creative work back into Bellingham. My goal has always been to inject life into the creative scene here in Bellingham, mainly film production. The possibilities are there. The property, the landscape of the town is there. The creative community is expansive, as we all know, right? There are filmmakers that are moving here almost every other quarter. I assistant directed a pilot in August from a filmmaker director that moved from California 6 months prior. I actually know the realtor too. Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, we're just getting all these filmmakers moving here, but the state itself or the productions aren't not here yet. So our goal is to take our projects, gain traction and success with those, so we can reinvest back into the film production infrastructure of Bellingham. Here. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's so many creatives here. It's a beautiful area. And not only that, just the history of the town, the history of the creative community here. Instead of, for a while there, we were seeing a mass exodus of people leaving Western, and then Bob Pritchett was the highest. Or he had the most creatives. Yeah. he employed the most creatives, right? And that was for Logos
in Faith Life.
Faith Life, yeah. But so he employed the most creatives, and my dream is to just employ those same creatives for the kind of stories and work that they want to produce.
Yeah, kind of like what, in the same vein of what you and I have talked about when we get together, is Bellingham has all this potential, has a lot of good things already happening, but we have this huge university of so many talented people. We've got people that live here already that for whatever reason decide, hey, I'm going to go find opportunities elsewhere. And I'm with you on that. I feel like there's a big opportunity, not just to help local businesses grow, but to add new creative, maybe new generational ideas to these companies. And we don't retain a lot of the people that come here.
No,
we don't retain great people that come here, right? Because of a hole that I'm really excited to watch you continue to fill that hole.
So we can only do that with the support of our leadership, right? And that's really it. The support of our leadership on a city, county, and state level really is where I feel like we're going to see some changes. For that, even we can only do so much. I mean, there's folks here that have resources far greater than me, right? And it's always been the same notion. Right. Like, well, I would like to do this here, but I'm taking this project there out of state, let's bring it here. Let's keep it here.
Right.
But anyway, I digress.
Let's talk about Egress.
Let's do it.
So Amazon Prime, correct? For now.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I might have to pull it soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. There's a lot of shows out there.
Yeah.
This is sci-fi.
Yes.
Totally right up my alley. I can't wait to watch it. Actually, I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the trailers. I'm going to watch it. I love sci-fi.
Cool.
Let's talk a little bit more. Talk to the listeners. Talk to me about what is the show about. that's a big deal to be on a streaming service, man.
Yeah.
And you're probably proud of it, but you're also, it might be a bigger deal to see that happen for you, but also this is just kind of the first few of many.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like? I mean, tell me about the show. What is the show?
Yeah.
What's the premise?
Yeah, man.
Where can people find it?
So I always start out by saying, Egress is also about mischief.
Yeah.
There seems to be a theme here, right? So, Egress is a universe full of bounty hunters, dastardly villains, corporate espionage, and desert shootouts. That takes place in this, like, in all these rich backdrops of our solar system, right? So it's a sci-fi. It takes place in the solar system in the future. Earth isn't destroyed. There's a sense of realism still within the sci-fi. So it's a cross between, say, Blade Runner and Cowboy Bebop, which is this old anime, which they've tried to resurrect on Netflix now. But it's a cross between those two in that there is no one character that saves the entire galaxy or universe. It's not a Skywalker saga,
right?
Or it's not a Dune family saga, right? It's just, it's very character driven. The characterization of these individuals, we see them go through these real life struggles, and the solar system and all that sci-fi stuff, that's just the backdrop, right? That's just the world around it. And I've been spending a lot of time world building a world that I would want to even live in as an adult. What do the corridors of this ship look like? What is the flora and fauna of these celestial bodies look like? And what's the history of the different government factions, and how do we make that intriguing, right? So it's a sci-fi Western is what I call it, because in this universe of Egress, space travel is it's not as common as you would see like in a Star Wars or Star Trek.
Oh yeah, they just like, okay, next solar system.
Yeah, we're there. Pew pew. We're none of that. I mean, while there is space travel and there are your conventional story things, right? Like space stations, the space station casinos, things like that.
I'd go to a space station
casino. Yeah, exactly. I would too. Yeah. We're building it right now.
Wait, is the Silver Reef working on their space
I think
station?
so. I think, I got their
Come on, guys.
I got their floor plans for the mock-up.
Just put it in the sky. On rockets.
Those are the things, man. Like, it's just like this. I'm a glorified, what do they call it? What are they called? Dungeon Master. I'm a glorified Dungeon Master is what I
love it. Yeah.
DM. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, oddly enough. Always watched other people do it.
But you're creating your own Dungeons and Dragons.
In space.
Yeah. Dungeon Master. Yeah.
I'm a space master.
Space master. So what's the format of the show? Like, how long are the episodes? How many episodes? How many one season?
So here, check this out.
Yeah,
this is like, we got to fire away at this. So in the last, I think since we spoke, I think we talked about this roughly last year. We have met with, I want to say, roughly 50 executive producers and investors within the industry, ranging from.
That sounds like a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of talking, a lot of no's, but a lot of great information. Holy cow! Which is changing all the time. I mean, well, that's a whole nother issue. Within those conversations, I was really humbled in that. We were originally going to turn Egress into an episodic series. I've since rethought that approach and realized, look, some of the best sci-fis to get like really get themselves off the ground started out as a standalone feature film. A New Hope, Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
One feature film. Right?
I've never heard of that. I've only heard of Egress.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What's Star
Wars? Isn't like the shadow of Egress.
Star Wars.
Well, it's one word, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's like this whole intro where the words come down the screen. And,
I'm sure YouTube's algorithm will.
We'll pick up on that. I'm gonna get now. I'm gonna get.
Now you're gonna have to pay Disney.
Damn it.
But we ended up taking a lot of the advice that we've been hearing, and also not just the advice, but really, if I want to make this happen, I have to listen. There's a certain point. I saw this really cool post by The Rock. How do you determine what's noise and bullshit and what's feedback that could really make
the signal
impact?
In the noise?
Yeah, the signal in the noise. And the signal was Egress needs to be a feature film. So it is going to be a feature film at first.
Woo!
Yeah. So we're turning it into a feature. And honestly, creatively, that has allowed me to really take this expansive universe and dial it in to this really centralized story. It's allowed me to flesh out the characters even more, their personalities. We get to really explore them on a singular level without all these other plot ideas being brought forth. Because features are written completely different than a television series. If you watch a
Right.
television series, you're always going to hear little plot nuggets that are within that episode that are being dropped for future subsequent episodes. You can, in the television space and series space, you can kind of get away with that because you're like, oh, what, that character was alluding to that situation. I wonder if we'll run into that later.
Next episode.
Yeah, next episode.
And then you look at the title and you're like, I think this is the one.
This is exactly.
Yeah. And then it's not.
You're right. But
Damn
when you do that, you run the risk of not spending enough time on characters or not spending enough time on certain plot points or arcs, you know, so then it just becomes diluted or just not as interesting, you know. Turning this into a feature has allowed us to actually make the story way better. These characters, I know them way more and understand where this should go, even more so than I did when we were trying to get it off the ground as a series.
So right now, if someone wants to go watch it,
yeah,
I mean, just for the future, for all you sci-fi people out there, including myself, we're going to see Egress on a big screen.
Yes,
okay,
you will.
That's going to be awesome. Hopefully there's a premiere. I'd love to be there. Coop, you want to be there? Tiffany, sci-fi?
Everyone here.
You found you found 3 of your demographic here, and Taylor for sure.
Love it.
Taylor would be down. So big screen, TBD. We're excited about that.
Thanks, man.
Currently, if someone wants to watch a glimpse into it, it's on Amazon right now.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Under Egress, Egress.
And how many episodes are there?
There's only 1 at the moment.
1.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So you guys heard it, sci-fi people out there. I know there's a lot of people that listen to this that like sci-fi like I do.
Love it.
And so we're excited to see this happen.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Is there anything else that we should be keeping an eye out for? Anything that you're excited about?
Well, we just dropped a trailer for it, which is the trailer for the because we shot 2 proof of concept episodes in April. Those are in post-production right now. I'm actually, just before I got here, I was doing some VFX on it. But with those 2 episodes, we're going to premiere them along with the original one in Texas. And there's a trailer that kind of goes over the entire universe. So check it out. Now, this is actually,
what's it called?
It's Redemption.
Redemption
trailer.
I'm seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a theme.
Yeah.
From the intentional mischief maker behind these movies.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I'm grateful for this. Appreciate it.
I'm glad we finally got a chance to sit down, but also we've had so many conversations that have built up to this conversation just that are similar to this. And this is just one piece of the larger conversation that we've been having about life, business, family, just how to be more candid, how to be honest with yourself, like all of these themes. So I just wanted to thank you for being you and not feeling the pressure of whoever was in your life early on in life telling you to not be yourself. So I just really appreciate that you just said, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing me. It's going to go in one ear out the other. Yeah. I'm going to do this the hard way. I'm going to do this my way because it shows in your work, and just Thanks, stoked to know you. And
likewise.
Thank you for sharing your story and truly being vulnerable about what it takes to be a human and an entrepreneur. Thanks for not dropping the LinkedIn, elevator speech. I like to make movies.
Yeah.
I make movies.
Hashtag film producer.
Hashtag here. Hashtag winning. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. This is episode 3, season 5. The man, the myth, the legend, Clarito Zapanta, IAJ Media. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Building Bellingham is a community podcast exploring leadership, challenges, failure, and mindset with entrepreneurs right here in Whatcom County, Washington. You can be the first to hear about upcoming guests by subscribing to the Building Bellingham Facebook or Instagram pages, as well as the Building Bellingham YouTube channel. This episode was produced and edited by Tiffany Holden. Our videography is done by Cooper Hansley. Community projects are by Taylor Beal. To learn more about the team behind the podcast and to download our media kit, check out our website at www.livebellinghamnow.com or search Cohen Group NW on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. From the whole Building Bellingham podcast team, thank you for listening.